especially those that help to develop youth as our leaders of tomorrow.
And then finally, we have Chief Edward, is the North Muskegon Sheriff of Police. He is originally from Muskegon area and has served 29 years with the Michigan State Police, from which he is retired as a detective lieutenant. He is based in Metro Detroit area. Chief Edward has also served with the U.S. Air Force Reserve as a senior master's sergeant for 33 years.
And we actually have one more panelist. Jill Young engages and challenges young people through her work as a pastor at Bethany Church, as a member of the Youth Empowerment Program Steering Committee, as co-director of Catch Camp in Muskegon, a collaboration with Community and Compass, coaches youth sports and volunteers around the city. Her most cherished title is Mom of 4 amazing, beautiful, and stubborn kids. That was all the panelists. So first we can call on Chief Edward Vivret to tell your story a little bit.
Am I unmuted?
Yep, you're all good.
Well, good afternoon. How you guys doing today?
I'm great.
very honored. I am very honored to be here today. And as a originally from Muskegon High specifically, I'm really honored to be here and be in this position that I hold. I'm just going to go down the list of the questions that you guys presented to me, if that's okay. And I think that's the way the format is going to be. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The first question was, what was it like in the United States Air Force Reserve? And did you experience racism? I spent 4 years active duty, 4.5, 5 years active duty in the United States Air Force. And then I continued my service in the reserves for 33 years. It was a fantastic time. I enjoyed traveling around the world. I enjoyed working with a variety of people. That's one thing that's different than being in Muskegon. When you get out, when I grew up in Muskegon Heights, it was majority African-American community. The majority of my teachers were African-American. My role models and all that was African-American. When I got in the military, I saw a whole nother diverse world out there where it was just the opposite, where I was the one, African-American male in a unit or in a section or an office space, and everybody else was around me was not of African-American descent, such as you guys would be in school. And then the next question said, did you ever experience racism? Yes, throughout the promotion process in the reserves is very subjective. And that's one of the things that drove me to actually get promoted throughout the reserve unit, was seeing guys or seeing people, men and women, overlooked because of their race and stuff like that. So once I realized and saw those issues out there, I didn't just sit back and I leaned into it. And I would actually put in for things and got promoted throughout my time in the military. And that's one of the things that actually drove me, was seeing people being overlooked or mistreated. The second question would be, how do you feel about racism in schools? It sickens me to my stomach. I have 2 grown adult children. I raised them in the Metro Detroit area, and it's nothing like having your child come home and you having to explain to them why they did not get something, or what particular, what caused that to be when they felt they were equally qualified. My son played college football, and we would see competitions and all kinds of stuff that would go on. And it just sickens me to my stomach when you see that stuff, and then have to spend time to not only raise a child, but that added burden of explaining to them why they're being mistreated. What does unity mean to the chief of police? Unity to me means we're all working together. The police department, the schools, the community, everybody's actively engaged in solving whatever issue or whatever problem. And it's not actually solving a problem, it's actually communicating. And that has to be a constant thing that I push down to my officers, or when I'm talking to staff, when I see somebody at the store. That's what unity to me is that we're all in this together. We all have a role to play in it. And when we see stuff, we have to address it and try to move this forward to make this a better place. How was it moving to Detroit, then to North Muskegon? Like any differences? From Detroit to North Muskegon is like going from a million miles an hour down to 10 miles an hour. You get the same thing, but it's like going from a big school to a little school, and everything kind of slows down. The things that sometimes get overlooked in a big city are magnified in a small city. And I always laugh and joke. It's like cutting grass, not having your grass clipped. In a big city, it's an issue, but here it's magnified, and that's our major concern, sometimes. But that's just the best way I can explain that. But how much different is it in Detroit than here? It's a lot of difference, because it goes from the cultural experience to the social economical standards. Being around the demographics, I lived in a very mature, well-developed community of Southfield. And to have a majority of dual income parents that are African-American, most of the kids are going to college. It's just a different environment than being over here on this state. That was the Southfield where I lived and raised my kids at. What it's like to be the chief of the North Muskegon Police Department is one of the best jobs I've ever had. I've been very lucky. All my jobs I've really enjoyed. This is one of the best ones. We got a great community. We do things like this. We're constantly trying to improve, but it's challenging. Can it be scary? Yes, because now, like I tell people when it comes to crime, you used to be able to, and it's not even crime, but it's like social issues that we see on TV. It would be those people. It would be way over there. And now what we're seeing is not way over there. It's not out of sight, out of mind. It's right here. And you can touch it, feel it, taste it. So I take this job very seriously. I try to push that down in the sensitivity to my officers, to people I encounter, working with the schools, with the city manager, city management. When I appear on boards, I am bringing that experience that I've had over the 33 years. And I feel the weight of these times, and my officers feel the weight. So it can be scary because every day is a new day. Have you ever faced racist comments from someone that you met or one of your peers? What people don't realize is that when I take off my uniform, I'm still an African-American male. So yes, from buying a car to buying a house, to education, to schooling of my kids, I've had racist comments, and sometimes you can't tell whether it's ignorance or racism, but I've had blatant racism, and I've had systemic racism presented to me. How do you feel about the Black Lives protests and riots in the summer of 2020? That's one of the reasons, and I tell people that your right to speak is one of the things. Whether I was working at state police, I defended. I don't always agree with people's rights, not rights, with their opinion, but they have that right to express their opinion. That's why we're in the United States of America. And that's what I've stayed in the military for, is to protect our rights. And that's one of the dearest things that we have out there. And I will always protect your right of freedom of speech. But when it comes to riots, I have zero tolerance for that. We can protest and march, and I'm with that 1,000%. But the moment that you tear somebody's business up, I'm totally against that. Totally against that. But I do understand the psychology that goes behind that sometimes, but we have to be better as law enforcement and people in the community. And that makes people, it's funny, people are asking for conversation. And a lot of times until the riot breaks out, the conversation is not had. And that's the sad part about it. And that's the reality of it. How do you feel about the recent police brutality that has been spiking throughout the country? Does it affect your job as police chief? Absolutely. Because my men and women who work for me and other law enforcement in this community, we feel that. We feel that burden. When we see stuff happen on TV We get comments from our family members, being African-American male. I have deep conversation with my own family members, with my friends, with my associates. So, and then I am a police officer. So I have my own son, I have my daughter, my grandkids. I feel that, and our community feels that. Why did you become a police officer? I became a police officer to protect, and I used to say, lock up the bad guys. And I truly say, lock up. If you're a criminal, you need, we will address those issues. And to protect my family and my friends from violence, because I've worked homicides, narcotics, and I've seen the devastation that crime can do to a community and the effects that it has on these kids. And I'm passionate about doing that kind of stuff. How does police brutality affect the police force and your job as chief? It makes it harder to do. The men and women, 99.9% of the time, are doing a fantastic job. Is that 0.1% or whatever that small percentage is that we as law enforcement have to do a better job of getting out, because it makes it bad for all of us. And I think we have not held up our bargain to that sometimes. How do you feel about the effect on people of Black community when the recent police shootings? Once again, I am I'm a Black man off duty. I go to the same barbershops. I go to the same, I drive my car. I've been stopped by being Black off duty. I don't say, I've been profiled, and I have a son. I can take care of myself. What scares me is my son and my grandson. So I am trying to always educate people on that kind of stuff. And what's the hardest thing you faced in your lifetime? And how did you get through it? The two hardest things that I think I faced in my lifetime was going through the Michigan State Police Academy, not knowing how to swim, and they made me swim, and they drowned me a couple of times. And then the second one, I have two beautiful kids and raising them. And how did you get through it? It's taught me one thing, that this program only accelerates. It only gets harder, and it only gets more challenging. And it's never, ever ending learning process. And once you think you got it, once that's the problem. Once we realize that we have made it and that's it, I think that's our biggest problem, that you think you know what you're doing and you're not trying to learn. And that's our biggest problem, is that this is a continuous learning, moving environment. And that's one thing the state police taught me. And that's one thing my two grown kids teach me every day. And I think that's it. Hopefully it wasn't too fast.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sonetta Adams, would you like to go?
Sure. Y'all can hear me?
Yep. You're all good.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Alex and Dre, for moderating this. And a shout out to my two children there, Christina and Zariah. I've had 5 out of 6 children go through North Muskegon. 2 of them have graduated so far, another one graduating this year from North Muskegon. So I know North Muskegon very well. Just to I'm going to take the questions and kind of sum them up in my conversation with you all. So just to give you a little bit of a background about me, I grew up in a smaller community as well in Illinois, went to a school. I had a graduating class of 500, and there were 5 Black people that went to school with me in my class. So it was a large pool of really understanding what some of you both have dealt with, but on a larger scale, feeling like you're in a sea of people that don't get you or understand you. So I understand that. I served in the military. I'm a female veteran, a woman of color, and I will just say, just in kind of answering some of the questions that are here, have I endured racism or sexism? Absolutely. It's something that's a part of the job. I remember, when I went to college, I went to Northern Illinois University as my first stop for college. And, after I joined the military, I had a couple more stops through college before I graduated. I remember when I got to campus, I had done everything I was supposed to, had a high GPA, had a good test score, ACT score, and got in on my own recognizance, no special programs. But there was an assumption that because I was Black that I got in on some special program. And so, that's the first thing against you. You can't get in on your own. You have to, it's either affirmative action or some of these other things. And I will say that, one of the things I learned growing up from my mother, who, was alive during the time Martin Luther King was alive, and my grandmother as well, is that, you have to work harder just to be at equal playing field. So if I want to go into a job, I have to have more credentials for the same position that someone else is going into, just so that I can be competitive and just so that I can actually get a little bit of an edge. And so just know that getting into school on affirmative action and all those other things, nobody's giving anything to people of color to get into those schools. They actually have to work hard and excel a little bit higher sometimes than the people who just make it in to get in through those programs. So I wanted to put that out there. But I will say, going into the military is a male dominated world. So I joined in 1998. And one of the things I heard often was, why are you here? You shouldn't be here. And, I'd always come back like, the reason why you're not dropping right now to do some push-ups is because of me. So like, you just need to keep it down. But that was always a harsh reality. And so you work your way up, you go to school. I graduated from law school in 2014. I didn't graduate right away. I went to school from high school to college. And by the time I was in my third year, I joined ROTC and then joined the military from there. And then life happened. I got married while I was in the military to someone in the military. And then I had children. And so my college career was put on hold, but I went back after I became disabled. I fell off a 2.5 truck with the rails up, which is about an 11-foot fall, and severely injured my back, was in a wheelchair, told I may never walk again. So now I'm a disabled Black woman. And that was even more of a struggle. And so I had to go back to school and finally graduated with my law degree in 2014. And you would think, okay, so right, I've gotten to a point where I should be taken seriously. And no, it's still, I remember the first time, actually the first few times that I walked into the courtroom here in Muskegon County, I had on a really nice suit. I was dressed nice. I had the right attire to be assumed as an attorney. And I was considered the defendant, the person who had broken the law. That was me. So I was like, wait a minute, I've done all this work and I still can't be taken seriously, or you look too young, or you don't fit the right profile to be an attorney. Did you pass the bar? Yeah, I passed the bar. So, all of those types of things, it's just, you work hard and you try to get to a certain point, and it's not enough. And when you talk about the military, Chief Everett brought up something really interesting. I've always pretty much lived in predominantly white neighborhoods. Even, after I was 12 years old, my family moved from the city of Chicago to a suburb, and there weren't many of us there either. And so after I got out of the military, out of active military, my husband was active. After we got out of active military, I was still National Guard Reserve, but I had to take my uniform off. That was a 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year type of thing. And I remember it was at the time we were getting out of the military, and we were in between jobs. So when you get discharged from the military, nobody hands you a job. You have to still find one. And we were in the middle of finding one. And so then we had to be able to have food to pay for food and everything. And, so we were on WIC. So that's where they give you milk and things for your child. And I remember going to the store, and you talk about the worst experience I had. I remember crying in the store because the woman berated me for being on food stamps, or being on, this WIC program, and that I'm just taking from taxpayers, and I'm just like everybody else who doesn't do anything and doesn't give back to community. And I remember that thinking, here I am serving my country. I just don't happen to be in my uniform today. I've given so much. I've taken the toil of an injury and all of these things, only to be treated as though I'm nothing. And so we fight for freedom in the military, but freedom doesn't mean it gives you the right to say and do anything you want to. When we talk about freedom isn't free, freedom comes with a price. But just like anything, there's responsibility tied to that price. So we have to be careful what we say and what we assume and how we judge people. And so even living in that white community that I lived in, nobody would speak to us until one day they saw us coming outside in our uniform. Then we were like the bee's knees. Then it was like, oh, hey, how you doing? So we can't let perceptions drive us. Just taking some of the other questions. The hardest part of my job is having to feel like I have to prove myself every day. When I was appointed to this position by the governor, I sit on the governor's cabinet, and I'm the first female veteran in the state of Michigan and in history to be on as a cabinet member, which to me is crazy. But you know, in 2019, you think we've gotten there. But and the first cabinet member from Muskegon County. And I get to that position, and I had people within the veteran community, males mostly, who said, "Oh, I'm only here because I'm a token. I'm only here because I'm Black. I'm only here because I'm a female. And this is a man's position. You don't understand." And yet I do. I intricately understand. So, you know, even now, still having to prove myself as worthy to be in this job every single day. What I will say, some takeaways, because I know we have to keep moving. Some takeaways is what I'll say is that we all come from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds. Some of us have been raised with not having to ask or worry about anything. Some of us have been raised where, you know, we got one present all year. That was birthday, Christmas, mother, everything. So, you know, we've all come from different backgrounds. There's different ages. We have people who are considered millennials, and we can't be, you know, ageist against them just because we don't think they understand, and vice versa. But the bottom line is that we need each and every one of those differences and diversity, because that's what makes us great. You know, I can come in and handle a budget, and I sure did, because I grew up having to budget. I had to budget. So I can come in and say, nope, we can cut here, we can cut here, we can do this, we can make this better, because I have an understanding of it. And so those are some of the takeaways. The other thing is that whatever test you may be going through, whether it's because you're, you know, because of your gender, your sexual orientation, whatever the case is, know that you can take that test, you can turn it into a testimony, you turn it into a testament, and then you turn it into action. You can take that and flip it on its head and turn it into something positive. And that's what I've done with each and every situation that I've gone through. It may hurt while I'm dealing with it, but then I say, how can I make it so that other people understand what I'm going through? But also, how can I make it so that other people don't have to go through it? And one final thought I will say is that, you know, in today's world, you can change almost everything about yourself. You can change your gender. You can change whether you're, you know, wealthy or poor. You can change your religion. You can change your sexual orientation. But one thing you can't change is your racial makeup. I can't change who I am. I can't change how I was born. But yet that's the thing that I'm judged on the most, which I find interesting. So just think about what you're saying, how you're approaching life, how you're looking at things, because the lens that you're looking at is not necessarily the lens that someone else is living. And take that and just have humanity. And I hope that you all get something out of today. Being a woman of color, they all have their negatives. But I've sat there and I've turned it around to say, well, how can I make it better for other women by starting a women veterans organization? How can I make it better for veterans? Because I was disabled, I was depressed, I was suicidal, I was all of those things. How can I now make life better for those other people so they don't have to go through what I went through? And so that's what I challenge you to do. Look at your situations, look at the situations of your fellow classmates, and see how you can flip that on its head to make it a positive. And thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There were so many awesome takeaways from that. So next, Jill Young, would you like to share your experiences with us, please?
Sure, I'll go. All right, so I think, first of all, I just want to say hello and thank you for having me, and go Norse. I just want to take a minute and say we're having an epic spring sports season at North Muskegon. So way to go girls soccer, way to go girls softball, varsity baseball, North Muskegon tennis. You guys are so talented. I wish I could be at every match, every game. I'm just enjoying this spring so much, and go Norse. Okay, most of you know me or my family. If you don't, I would like to get to know you, but just a little bit about my background. You can probably tell from hearing me talk that I was born and raised in the Deep South in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the Bible Belt, by wonderful parents. But I was raised in a religious community where women were not allowed to hold any leadership positions or be involved in any decision making. And in a lot of faith communities, even now in 2021, that is still the case. As I graduated from college, I went to a private religious school, K through 12, and also in college. As I graduated from college and began to see the big, beautiful world that we live in, to meet a lot of different kinds of people, to expand the kind of books I was reading, the kind of organizations that I was a part of, I began to have my faith kind of tip upside down. And I'm so very thankful for that happening. My faith now is that I want to recognize that God's creation is beautiful and diverse. And I want to recognize the beautiful image of God in all different kinds of people, and not just the way they look, but their abilities and what they have to offer this world that we live in. And that's why I got involved with kids and teens. That's why I've dedicated my life to ministry, because I believe that especially you guys, kids your age and young adults your age, have the vision and the empathy to be a part of the process that I want to see to kind of set things right again. I loved the questions that were submitted to the panel as a whole, and also the ones that were submitted just to me. And I wish I had enough time to answer all of them. But I want to take just a minute and answer 3 of them. And I want to start off and say, friends can disagree on things. So I'm going to give you my email address, Norse Nation. It's jill@bethanychurchmuskegon.org. And if you want to disagree with me or talk this out, I invite you to email me. I will be glad to take you to coffee, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. The first question I want to answer is, how has your faith shaped the way you look at political and social justice issues? From where I'm standing, there's no sphere of my life that my faith doesn't impact and shape. There's a very important part of the Bible where the religious, what's the word I want to say? The religious elite, the religious powerful of the day are trying to trap Jesus into saying something that he shouldn't. And so they ask him, what's the most important part of all the law and all the prophets, everything that you've taught us, everything that we've read, what's the most important part? And Jesus gives them a very simple answer and says, the most important part is that you love God with your whole self, with your mind, your strength, everything, and that you love your neighbor. And so when I hear the word politics or social justice, for me, that's just another way that I can love my neighbor. If there's a leader or a policy or an idea that helps me love my neighbor and helps me help them flourish, help them survive, help them have access to the things they need, then I want to champion that. So the answer to that question from where I'm standing is, I don't know how it all can't be intertwined. I don't know how to separate faith from political issues or social justice issues. Again, we can disagree on that, and feel free to call me up for a conversation. I'd love to have a conversation with you. All right, the second question, why do older generations look down on younger generations so much? This is a really important question, and I think every generation is trying to figure it out. I don't think it's necessary.
Jill, we lost your volume. Oh no.
Ideas that they've had, and instead of passing the baton. Oh yeah.
We lost your volume for a second. We just got it back. Do you think you could start over a little bit on that question?
Are you talking about question number 2 about the generations?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. If my volume goes out again, give me a wild hand signal, okay?
Okay.
The question number 2 is, why do older generations look down on younger generations? And I was just saying that I don't think it's necessarily true that older generations look down on kids and teenagers, but I do think that certain generations have a tendency to want to cling very tightly to the things that they've created, the things that they've built, the systems and ideas that they've been a part of being champions for. And what I see in your generation, all the kids that are listening, is the ability to look at an idea or a system or an organization and say, well, that was cool, but I see a better way that it could be. I think it's a little broken. Let's fix it. And so what I want for my kids is to take what I've taught them, to take anything that I've given them, any ideas, and make them better, make them more just, more peaceful, more full of love, more for everyone to participate in. And I hope that as you grow up and have kids, or even take on a career where you're working with kids, that you will be more apt to look at the next generation and say, well done, keep going. If we've made something that's broken, then you guys take it and fix it. So I hope that's a good answer to that question. Let's see. All right, the big kahuna. Now, again, email me if you want to talk this out, but I'm going to go for it. This question was given to me, and I'm sure it's going to be a little bit controversial. What is your perspective on Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter? Okay, this is an important question. So Sheriff Poulin was on this panel. He's a friend of mine. Our kids have played sports together. I'm sure all of you know Officer Nelson. He's been a great neighbor to me. He coached my kids in football. So if you ask me the question, do you think that the lives of Sheriff Poulin and Officer Nelson matter? My answer is yes, of course, they matter. They've always mattered. And quite frankly, I don't have any friends or think I know of anybody that would say that they don't matter. But when we say that Black Lives Matter, that's an entirely different conversation. Injustice has been an issue forever in our country, and we know that African Americans have been disproportionately affected in this area. Folks, our country was founded on slavery. African Americans could not safely and fairly vote until like the 1960s. There are 100 members of the Senate of the United States of America, and 3 of them are African Americans. It's 2021, people. So now we have these amazing and terrible little devices, iPhones or iPads or whatever you have, and we can watch injustice happening in real time. So we advocate and join with our Black brothers and sisters to say, yes, we see this injustice, we see you, and your lives matter. And we haven't always been in this country the kind of people that would stand up and say, your lives matter. So I'm going to give you a little analogy, and it's actually not a very good one, but it was the best I could do. What if in North Muskegon, you had a friend that had cancer and you saw that your friend wasn't receiving very good treatment from doctors and you wanted to advocate for that friend? So in North Muskegon, we got a group together and put on a parade and wore t-shirts. We're standing with that person saying, we see you, we want you to be treated fairly, we love you, we are with you. And what if you came in a different t-shirt with an opposing, oppositional attitude saying, no, people with diabetes matter? Well, to me, you refuse to advocate for your friend with cancer because you feel like somehow power or value is being taken from them. But that's ridiculous. You see how ridiculous that is. I'm sure all of you are sitting there laughing, thinking what a terrible analogy it is. And it is a terrible analogy because in people with cancer and people with diabetes, there's not an imbalance of power. So for me, Blue Lives Matter is just distracting, and it doesn't take us forward where we want to go. Black Lives Matter is an entirely different conversation. I hope that all made sense. I just thank the panel so much for all their thoughts, and go Norse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I loved the analogy, by the way. It wasn't stupid.
It was a great representation.
Yes.
Would Kim Sims like to go?
So how funny is that? I'm sitting here the whole time and I'm thinking, please don't make me go after Jill.
You're gonna do
and so here I am. Wow. I just want to say to Alex and Dre, thank you so much. I sat here during your opening, quite honestly, and did all I could holding back tears. Like the mama in me just wanted to run and like embrace you and give you a hug. And I just want to say where you're at is a lot of courage, right? and quite frankly, my husband and I had a tough decision to make because of the position that we were in. We wanted good education for our kids, but we also wanted them to be around them, their peers that look like them. That was very important to us. So needless to say, we ended up sending one to private school. That didn't work so well. We had to pull him out. Right, we were completely losing, and we ended up starting to homeschool. So I've been on a homeschool journey now for almost 20 years. Go figure. Right, to try to give our kids a balance within the Muskegon County community that we felt necessary for them to thrive in the greater world. So again, thank you for that. My name is Kimberly Sims. I am the former mayor of the city of Muskegon Heights, of which I'm very proud of. And I just want to share a little tidbit with you. A lot of people think that I got into politics because I wanted to get into politics. Not at all. I actually got into politics because my husband and I chose purposely to move back to Muskegon Heights. And so in the area that we were living in, there was an abandoned lot. And in that lot, there was a tree. And every morning when I would go to work at the Red Cross, I would see this little boy shooting hoops in this basket, like a milk crate nailed to this tree. And so it dawned on me, like, why don't we just make that a park? How hard is that? And so honestly, it was the advocacy of trying to take that abandoned lot to turn it into a community park and taking that before the city council. And they fought us on every inch. They fought us about that. And in my mind at that time, if these are the people that are representing me, yeah, that's got to change, because that's not my thought about this process at all. So I then got in, not because I wanted to be in politics, because I wanted to make a change for the community that I love so much. So that's how I got to start. And so I tell you that story because you follow your heart. You got to go where you want to make a change. If you see there's something wrong and there's an injustice, go for it, right? Keep striking it until it changes. We have an obligation to our brothers and sisters on each side of us to make sure that the life they live is humane, to make sure that they feel welcomed and valued in any space that they go in. That's our charge for one another. And so I just want to put that out. But one of the very first meetings that I went to, actually, I was excited. I'm a newly elected official. I'm representing the great city of Muskegon Heights. And I go into the room, and lo and behold, I'm introduced as Kim Sims, the new young girl from Muskegon Heights. I'm sorry. I thought we were in a room full of professionals. So I'm just the young girl from Muskegon Heights. Oh. Okay, now this came from somebody that over the years I had grown to respect so much as a community leader, white male, right? Nobody said anything. So I sat there, and because of and this is one of the things I want to share with, I gotta make this point. Because of the way I had been socialized, because of the way I had been taught to see things, like through my experiences, nobody's saying anything, so I guess this is okay. I guess this is kind of the way of the escape of this thing, right? No, that wasn't right at all. I'm more than just this young girl. I'm actually a young Black, I'm a professional, just like you are, just like we regard you. That's the way we would think I would be regarded, but it wasn't that. And so because of my position, I served as a council person for 12 years, but then I was the mayor for 4. But every time I walked in and out of a space, at any table that I sat at, and I sat at some pretty decent spaces, it was always on my shoulders that I represented the marginalized community of Muskegon County. That was always there. I couldn't decide at one point that was my role. I'm the girl from Muskegon Heights. That is the way it became. I had to continue to push and continue and fight and just continue to be as articulate, like Zanetta said, right? You move, right? And realizing that each step you take, you're making somewhat of a difference. But as I began to get more accustomed and more comfortable in my role, then it became obvious that I needed to make some changes. And I decided that, right, I began to grow. I began to see how my socialization was tainting my view towards things and affecting policy affecting policy that I was instituting. So I had to stop and I had to get to know myself a little better, become more comfortable, quite honestly, in the skin that I was in, because I too went to a school that was predominantly white. And that's where a lot of my socialization took place. And quite frankly, it was when my daughter was a baby and my husband and I were out and somebody looked at her, white female, and was like, oh my God, she's so clean. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I really try to keep her up, da, 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 da. And my husband was like, what is wrong with you? Why wouldn't our baby be clean? And it clicked. That was the moment that it clicked for me, that my socialization needed to change. And it's been a journey ever since, right? So don't fault yourself because you don't know and you should did it, right? If you're alive and breathing, you can change it. The first step is to realize that there's a change that has to be made, and then start to take those steps at making them. Like my emotions are on 10. I had the awesome privilege this morning to listen to Dr. Bernice King. Amazing. If you have the opportunity to listen to her, just go, amazing. And one of the things that she said, right, was that the fight, the struggle for freedom is going to always be here. But each one of us has a responsibility in that fight, in that to help that fight along. Begin with educating yourself. One, I would challenge you with that. Two, look at how you've been socialized. What lens do you see things through, right? And then tweak it. Because honestly, white supremacy is real. It's embedded into the policy, into the structure of many of the organizations and in the way that many layers of stuff operate. It's there. I would challenge you, young people. I don't believe you're our future. You're our now. And we need you all to begin to start taking a look at some of these policies, some of these structures, and challenge them so that we can change it, so that I can go to sleep at night at some point, realizing that my 2 Black sons and my nephews and Chief Everett are gonna be okay. Because right now I don't have that privilege. Right now, when they leave the house, I'm worried and I don't sleep well. That's a reality for me. So I just want to say to you guys, thank you so much. I don't want to take too much time because I love questions and answers. That's like the high point of me. So thank you guys so much for the opportunity. Thank you for your willingness to be open and to learn and to listen. Thank you to North Muskegon for putting this together to make sure that your students can have a view that's outside of your community, because that's crucial. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kim. And last but not least, a good friend of mine, Nick Rossiter.
Oh my goodness. I miss you guys, Alex and Dre. It's
Miss you
been too
too.
long. Yeah, shucks. Okay, let's go through this. Wow, everybody else talked before me. I feel very out of my depth now. So looking at the questions, there was one about college, and I don't want to be another college advisor for the people watching this. You guys go through that too much. I've been there. College, like, it is different from school. I get a lot less Asian jokes at my expense, which is kind of nice. That there's less people doing like the slant eye thing. And people are like generally more respectful in terms of like accepting diversity and other people when in college, because you see like all sorts of like different people, and you're able to like present yourself as who you want to a lot more in college than you are able to in high school, especially in like an environment like North Muskegon where it's pretty judgmental. Like let's all be honest here, guys. It is a very judgmental environment. Okay, it's not healthy. Okay, when you get into the real world, it'll be better, hopefully. The challenges I face when like researching and writing about like racist systems, Kim touched on a lot of it. Like when you start doing your research, you kind of see, well, like the sheer like immensity of how sort of all-encompassing these systems are. Like Jill touched on it. You know, the United States was founded on slavery. Like when you see how ingrained these systems are in the United States, it's very easy to just get really depressed and really sad and sort of throw your hands up in the air and say, you know what, it's too big. These issues are too great. Like we can't possibly do this. that sort of falls into what I dubbed today the jaded parent fallacy, where your parents will like often tell you if they, speaking from experience, I have a different political leaning from my parents. They will often say that they have tried these things before and that they voted for people in the past that have done this and nothing ever changes. If we believe that, then it becomes true. If we believe that nothing will ever change, nothing will ever change. Like we have to take a stand somewhere and sort of make the effort to actually dismantle these systems on a large scale level. And I do believe that we have the power to do that. I mean, the past year has shown that when you activate, well, when you organize and like motivate the people around you to actually get stuff gets done. Like changes are coming. I've seen it in some of my own friend groups. I've seen it. I know social media is kind of a meme. Like the armchair activism is kind of, like it's very easy to just like post something and think that you've changed the world. Just as you said, like, I don't know. But I see a sort of collective movement from our generation that is on the right track. So I have hope. I don't think that racism is going to be solved in our generation, but I'm seeing the steps and I'm more hopeful. On to the reason why I'm here. I'm pretty sure I'm here because of the Asian hate thing that's going on right now. Hate crimes are up like 1,000% or something. I saw the statistic. It's kind of staggering, kind of scary. I fear for my mom whenever she goes to Meyer alone. It also falls beneath the status quo of like what Asian Americans go through every day. Like it's kind of this weird thing that Asians have regarding other races, that we're like in this weird limbo where white people are above us, but like other races like Black people and Hispanic people are below us for some reason, and we're just in this weird like pseudo white label. That's not true at all. Like if you're one of like I can count on one hand how many Asian people go to NM. If you're in that demographic and you think that you're like above another marginalized group, you're not. Like the COVID thing has really exemplified that. As soon as we are able to be labeled as an other, we will be labeled as an other. The Asians are, one of my professors aptly dubbed it as the eternal foreigner concept. When you think about like the racial makeup of the United States, Asians are not a part of it, right? Like when you think of American culture, you think of like jazz, which was like created by Black people. Like we have freaking Cinco de Mayo that's going on right now from like Hispanic people. There's no like American like Asian holiday, like we are not a part of the racial makeup of the United States. And COVID and the whole like reaction to Asian people as a result is kind of representative of that. But like with all things that we've learned today, education is the key to fixing this. Like educate your friends, do your own research. That they're like Jill, like Jill was saying, we all have phones. It's very easy to just go on Google and look up how these systems have affected everyone. And just get out there and try, and fight, because this is a fight. It's not, some very easy thing where we can just like snap just like that, solve racism. It is a fight. You have to have these uncomfortable conversations. You have to get out there. You have to step out of your comfort zone. Like you got to pay a price for peace. Like if you dare to struggle, you dare to win. Fred Hampton said that. He's a leader of the Black Panthers. That's all I got for today. So thank you guys.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Nick.
Nick. Thank you. A big thank you to all the panelists who were here and joined us, and all the students as well who came and viewed everything going on.
Yeah.
Okay. We have some questions from students that Mrs. Christofferson is going to go get for us. That's a little bit of the waiting game. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
All right. Are these questions for the panelists? Okay. What are some things we can do as a school to make people of color feel more comfortable in school every day? So,
If anyone would like to answer.
yep, just anyone.
Maybe I'll just throw something out there and just look at people as people. I mean, we talk about race a lot, but we're all part of the human race. And so if we look at it from the perspective that, I think somebody asked me the question about, our, eggs all look the same on the outside, but, they can be different on the, look different on the outside, but all be the same on the inside. We are all the same on the inside. We're all part of the human race. So if you don't separate people, well, this person looks different, this person sounds different, this person dresses different, this person has a different type of car or doesn't have one at all. If we stop putting people in boxes, you could learn so much and grow so much and become a greater person by embracing the fact that we all really do bleed the same. So I think that's part of the breaking down the stereotypes that we talk about race, but we all are actually a part of the same human race. So start there. That's a good start.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe we have another question coming. Yeah, does anyone else want to respond before we move on? That's for anyone.
Just from a faith-based perspective, it's really hard to do, but be aware, put others' needs before yourself. And that's really hard. Adults are still trying to understand how to do that as well.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
We can't hear you, Kim.
Oh. Kim, we couldn't hear
We can't
you.
hear you if you were talking.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
One of the things is just treat people the way you want to be treated. And that's one of the things, they always ask me what makes a good police officer. And I say empathy. And that's some simple, that is the simplest thing that can make that just treat people the way you want to be treated and do unto others as you have them do unto you. These are some basic foundations, some basic principles that I would hope that everybody would be taught and learn and teach and learn in their life. And just treat people the way you want to be treated. And that goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to say something. Yeah. Something I saw a lot at Muskegon is this thing that I recently learned about called code switching, where like when you talk to different people of different races, you like put on like some different like accent. This happened all the time in Muskegon. Like if you're talking to a black student, don't speak to them differently. Like what are you doing? Like they're a normal person. Like people of color are still people. Like talk to us normally. Like we're not some like aliens. Like just be normal, okay? Like treat people as people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That one.
that's a good point.
Yep. Oh my goodness. What do you think / feel when people say things like, I don't see color?
Yeah, that's frustrating. Because, just like I kind of talked about how you should see people from the human race, but you shouldn't necessarily discount the differences that make us all unique. When someone says that they don't see color, then they don't see me. They don't see the experiences that I've probably gone through. They don't see all of those things that, if someone says, here's what I've learned from all the friend groups and things that I have with people of color, Asian, Latin American, Black, is that when something happens to us that seems wrong, our first instinct is not to think, oh, they're doing it to me because I'm Black or because most of the people that I know. Now, I'm not saying that's not everybody, but that's not the first thought that comes to mind. We try to figure out everything else before we go to that point to say, well, maybe it's because of this, maybe it's because of that. White people don't have to go through that type of analysis. But at the same time, understanding that I do have to go to that analysis because I'm a woman of color, a woman, and then a woman of color, is important to help you to how Chief Everett said, to have empathy towards what I may be dealing with, or the mindset that I'm coming from, because of all the experiences that I've gone through just because I'm Black in America, in a professional world, or in an all-white school, or in some of these other things. So I think really looking at it from that perspective. But yeah, that's very frustrating. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to touch on that question?
I would tend to agree with her. I think she said it perfectly. I had a question on here. Have you ever experienced racism while performing your duties as police chief of North Muskegon? Yeah, I would say yes. You know, when somebody comes up and assumes, boy, you're lucky to have that position, or side comments, or, you know, when somebody walks up to my officer and assume that he's in charge and I'm the boss and they have to defer to me, and then they look right at me. So yes, I have experienced racism as the police chief, as people have assumed either that I was not qualified or that they were trying to make a statement. I would put my resume up against anyone who wants to apply for the position, but that happens, and you have to be prepared and know how to handle yourself accordingly. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
The longer one. Okay. Oh.
I saw there was a question for me in the chat. I can answer the shorter one for now. I hope I kind of answered the longer one, but we can go back to that. But I saw what gave you the strength to keep on going through your disability and racism in the military. I'm going to be honest. I saw more gender sexism in the military than I saw racism. I felt more that I shouldn't be there because I was a woman than because I was a person of color. And so how did I deal with that? You know, we assimilate. We try to, as Nick said, code talk. We try to talk the talk. You see it a lot of times with women in the military. They, you know, maybe they get to the point where they swear more, or they do some of these other things so that they can fit into the maintenance shop, so that they're not singled out. And so we just, a lot of times while I was in the military, you kind of ignored those things, because the military is a specific type of beast where, you know, when you're talking to your chain of command about what happened, those are the same people that are going out to drink and have beer or whatever they're doing with the same people that are doing what's happening. So it's really, it's one of those things right now that's in the news that they're trying to break that cycle. But at the time that I was in, it wasn't broken. And so you just spoke with some of your friends who may have dealt with things, and you just kept it moving, and you try to keep it as professional as possible. I think dealing with disability, that was hard as well, because when people would see me disabled, I could have on a shirt. I can now today park in the Lowe's parking lot, veterans parking space, and people will approach me and say, "That's for veterans. You know, that's for veterans, right?" And I'll say, "Uh-huh." And they'll say, "But that's for veterans." Yep. And so people don't see me as a veteran because obviously women couldn't have served. But let me just give you a statistic. There are over 2 million women veterans in the country, over 47,000 in the state of Michigan. That's a lot of women veterans. So making the assumption that I'm somebody's spouse, or just parking because I shouldn't, or just being in a space or being disabled and it didn't come from a combat training related injury, should not be the assumption. So I sucked it up, like the military says, suck it up and drive on. I sucked it up and drove on. And then when I was able to be in a position of power, I've been working to change that ever since. So there you go.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
This question. Oh, I'm sorry.
I would say, from being an African-American male in the military, and I did rise up through the ranks, I did see it, and I would agree with Ms. Adams. And it is a tough thing, because I went through that, where I was actually making a complaint with my supervisor, and we talk about it every day. It was totally demoralizing to be taking my complaint to an individual. Then on Sunday, we go and stop by the bowling alley, and I see these two guys sitting in the bar drinking together. And I'm thinking, where is my complaint really going? If I'm giving and that's that chain of command, that's a whole separate beast there. But that was demoralizing. And I'm getting mistreated, not getting promoted, not getting assignments that I know will lead directly to me getting promoted. And I'm wondering, is it me? Like you said, I'm sitting there going through this. Maybe I need more education. Maybe I need to, score higher. Maybe I need to do something else. And as soon as I went around that individual, I got promoted right away.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to comment on what he said or not? Okay. No. All right. This question is for everybody. Vaccine distribution is expected to slow down in part because of minorities not getting vaccinated. What do you think about this?
I'll take some of that one.
Okay.
And so that's really interesting. Right. And it's one of those things where I truly believe there has been some wrongs done to the Black community, the African-American community, whichever you're most comfortable with, that are now coming home to roost, right? Black folks have been experimented on in this country like no other. Tuskegee Airmen, you go through the litany of how Black women and Black men have been experimented on. And there is a distrust for the government. Like, I am not doing that. I'm not. Been there, done that, didn't have a choice then, have a choice now, and I'm not doing it. So you have to take some of that into consideration. And it's unfortunate, but it's just like so many, and I get chills, right? But it's like so many other things that are happening right now, in as much as this is the problem that has been created by the system that we all now need to address, right? And so just that distrust is there, and I don't know how it's going to be corrected, but there are some people that are definitely against it for that very reason.
Great point.
Well, I would add,
Thank you.
I was going to say, I would add too that, so I did have my Johnson & Johnson shot, and a lot of it's because of the position I'm in. A lot of it's because, I'm around a lot of vulnerable veterans. I'm vulnerable, have vulnerable issues myself. I did receive my vaccine, but, one of the things, I'll say from the veterans perspective is that there are many veterans and even military active duty who aren't receiving it either. And that's because I remember being put in a room to get the anthrax shot, and I asked for information on it. They're like, yeah, you can get information when you leave, but if you don't get this shot, you're going to be discharged from the military. So we were made to get every shot they had out there under the sun, from polio to anthrax to you name it. And so you have a lot of people that if they have a choice, I truly believe they're going to be moving towards making military get it sooner than later. But, if you have a choice, you're like, yeah, I'm not getting another vaccine. I've gotten all of them under the sun, and no telling what that did to me. And so you have hesitancy there as well. But Kim is right. You talk about the Tuskegee Project and all of these other things. You have to be able to show in America that trust has been built in some of these other areas with African Americans before you truly are going to get buy-in from them to trust in something like this, the vaccine. And so it's really difficult. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, that's what you're dealing with. And so then when you see across the country all of these voting laws that are being pushed back so that it makes it harder for people of color to vote, that doesn't instill trust in the system trying to work to change things. So why should a huge population of people trust that you're saying, yeah, this is good for you? Are you going to just be guinea pigs, or what? So I think that it's really trying to build that trust, and you have to show it in some areas so that large population of community can get on board.
Go ahead.
I would tend to agree. And what people don't realize is that this system is not in a silo. You can't just you just don't Voting Rights Act, the vaccine, the history. There are people still living today that have problems because of the Tuskegee experiment. Been in the military, if it was so good, and this is the logic that some people follow, if they're not mandating it for the military and being active duty, we got a ton of shots that was mandated before we got deployed. This wasn't a choice. It wasn't, and we were going to combat. And this virus is the same thing. So if it's that important, this is their logic. then how come this is not being mandated? And if it's that important, how come they're not mandating it for the military? So that's the back, and so that's where that distrust comes from, because they would bring in, when the anthrax came, it wasn't like she said, it was a drop in her hat. They walked you in, 800 people at suffrage. They walked us in like cattle and said, you getting the shot next. So if it's that important for you to get deployed to go to work, why is it not that important now for my community? Because I'm right here at home. That's that logic. So you can't, this doesn't happen in a vacuum or some little silo by itself. And people, we think we're smart. I mean, and I can come up with any lot, that's why they have a problem with it. And I truly understand. But I did have my shot because I did my own research. Like you said, you got the phone. So I did my research and talked to my doctor, and I got it.
So following up to that question, how can we do our part in improving the safety of the vaccines while still remaining respectful?
Education.
Mm-hmm. And I would say too, just as Chief Everett mentioned, one of the things I've had some town halls with veterans and talking about the science and some of the myths out there. It's not believing everything you read on social media either, because it's not all true. And not even everything you read sometimes in the news, because that's not all factual either. But what I will say is looking at, what the CDC puts out, and I know things keep changing, but looking at that, but, Chief Viverette talked about, understanding the science and going to his doctor. I did the same thing. I called my doctor and I said, look, is there anything in my medical history that gives you pause to think that I shouldn't receive any of these shots? Is there one that I shouldn't receive over another? Like what? And then so he not only checked, but he also checked with the pharmacist to see if there was anything in my medicine and prescriptions and things like that. So I felt a little bit more confident after doing my research, but also talking to my own medical provider before I went and took advantage of this. So you have to be your own best advocate, but you have to also be your own best researcher. You can't trust what's on TikTok. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on TikTok for and against. So you can't necessarily trust what's on there. You have to do real research, not the research that comes on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and all those other ones.
Okay, so thank you for that. There are two more questions, unless anyone else wants to answer that one.
I was just going to go real quickly and say, teenagers and kids may not have all the influence and power that adults have, but you know what? You do have it.
Oh, wait, Jill.
Right.
Jill, your audio cut out. Oh, no. Jill. Oh, no, this screen.
Go to your friend and talk to them and say, I love you and I care about your health and I want you to get the vaccine. Yeah.
The audio cut out again. We were all waving like crazy.
Oh, I'm starting to see a pattern here, guys. No, I'm just kidding. Should I start over or just?
Yeah, you can. No,
Yes.
Yeah, you can start over.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, high school and middle school kids don't always have the power and influence that adults do, although you do have a good amount of influence. But one thing that you do have at your disposal is friendship and trust. And if you have a friend that is refusing to get the vaccine or is ill-informed, go to your friend, tell them that you love them and you want them to get the vaccine and you care about them. And you also have a lot of advocates in the community and in the greater Muskegon community as well. Reach out to an adult doctor friend that your friend that won't get the vaccine trust. Involve them in the conversation. Friendship and trust and conversation, even though it can be hard, go a long, long way.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. This is kind of off topic to the vaccine, but still very relevant. So the thought of being killed just for your skin color is terrifying. What are some things that people have told you or have done for you that made you feel safer? And then this is to anyone who would like to answer.
So I would say I'm a woman of faith as well. And so I keep it, I pray, and I don't think that there's anything that some person can tell me that's going to make me not be concerned about my 18-year-old son out there driving a Cadillac Escalade down the street and getting pulled over and it ending badly, or my 12-year-old son who has autism being misunderstood one day. There's not much that anyone can tell me. I would say, show me. I'm a show me state. Like, yeah, that's me personally. Show me that there's things that are changing. But I would say that I don't have as much anxiety as I could have, because I pray. I trust that God is going to protect my children. I trust that he has his hedge of protection around us. And I trust that, nothing formed against us will have any foothold or prosper. And so really just trusting, not in man, but in the man above, the God above, to make sure that there's protection there, and trust that if something does happen, that there has to be a reason. And I pray that there's not a reason that puts me in that position, but I don't think that there's anything that anybody can say, but you can show me. You can show me by advocating and by changing how you approach people, by treating people the way you want to be treated, and by the system starting to change, and by police brutality going down. When I start to see that, that's something that will give me even greater comfort in that notion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to jump in just a little bit there. And I think Jill referenced it a little bit in her conversation when she talked about you have influence, right? You have influence with people because you have relationship with people. Get to know me, talk to me, right? Do life with me. And I tell people all the time, I'm not looking for allies anymore. I'm working on that. I'm not looking for allies. If you want to get on with me, be an accomplice in the crime with me. Go to jail just like I might go to jail. Be willing to take that on and do life with me. That's something that just that aspect of relationship and connectedness allows me to feel a bit safer in your presence. It allows me to think that if there is a crisis for me, that you're going to come beside me and walk through that with me. That's something. But I'm with Zanetta in that. Like, it's still hard to go to sleep at night knowing that your boys aren't home. That's difficult. That's something that I have to work through. But having a friend or someone that I'm in a relationship there with me that I can talk to, who can empathize with me in that, allows me some comfort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would agree with the two ladies. Trusting in the Lord. I have a son that's 29 years old or so, and I have a grandson and a son-in-law and other relatives. You got to be aware of what's going on around you. And that's what I tell my kids. I pay attention to that. My friends, retired police officers, you have to be aware. You just can't walk around here in a daze and not knowing the situation. And that's just an added burden that you have to carry. But I want to go home at night. I want my kids to come home. And so I want them to be, and I don't know how to put it, but you got to be aware. You got to be paying attention to what's going on.
Who that is?
And know who you with, and know where you're going, and what town you're in. My son travels, he vacations, and but I'm always on him about, you got to be, you have to take responsibility. And that's sad, but I want him to come home at night, or I want to come home at night. So I'm constantly aware. Nobody can just make me feel comfortable by some words. That don't do anything for me. I'm gonna show me, like she said, I'm gonna show me state. Then we can talk. But I take it upon myself and my friends and my family to make sure that they're aware of what they're doing and where they're going. And because I go everywhere I want to go, and that's what I get in trouble for that. But I am aware of where I'm at.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our last question for the day is, how many times a day or how often do you think about your skin color?
All day, every day. Right? And I don't know if Zanetta can attest to this. Chief Viverette, maybe not so much, maybe Nicholas, not so much, but even to the point where when I decided that I was going to grow locks some years back, I struggled with that. I struggled with that. I had people tell me it was unprofessional. They were nasty. They were dirty. And I did it, and I was still employed at the time. And my boss had a little bit of trouble with it. Not quite sure how to but I then got labeled as like this militant, angry Black woman. Well, I've never been that. How did a hairstyle change that? Right. And so it's really interesting, but all day, every day, I can't take it off. When I go places, it's there, it's obvious to the world. So yeah, think about it often.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would agree. I would say on a daily basis. And the hair thing is real. I mean, because I like to change it up. I know I've seen some people that have the same hairstyle for 30 years, but I like to change it up. And, you get the comments and the looks, oh, you changing it up. Yeah, I'm changing it up. It doesn't change my professionalism. It doesn't change the fact that I'm still smart and can do the job. It's just I can change it up. And so even to the point of like, are hoops going to make me appear like I'm not as professional, or if I wear this, am I going to look too young, or you're thinking about those things that people judge you on, and especially your skin color all the time. And I would say in the role that I'm in now, it comes off apparent, especially and I'll add this. Somebody mentioned it earlier, and we talked about titles. It was Kim. And she talked about when she walked in this room, I go by Director Adams at my job. And it's not because I want to feel like I'm, powerful. But it was because when I first got there, I would normally just go by Zanetta because that's who I am. That's who I've always been. But when I first got there, it was brought to my attention, and it was really important that I'm in a male dominated place. And when someone steps to me and has an issue, they're going to see me as this Black woman who shouldn't be in this position. And so by calling me my first name, they're going to think that they can say or do whatever they want to. But when they have to call me Director Adams, then it reminds them of who I am. And it reminds them to stay in their place because I hold the keys to your paycheck too. So it's one of those things that, you think about on a regular basis, but, you wish you didn't have to. I just want to be able to do my job and get through life. I don't want to wonder if the person is treating me differently, or if I get pulled over, it happened in my state vehicle. I got pulled over and I got profiled, and that actually officer ended up being all in the news and got fired from his job. But I don't want to have to be profiled when I'm driving down the street just because I'm a Black woman driving in an area that I shouldn't be driving in. So yes, it's a constant thing to think about your skin color, and it's unfortunate. We need to change that, and you all are the ones to change it. So
Yes.
Great answer.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I would agree. It's a constant that you think about all the time. I don't have the locks or the earrings, but I am an African-American male, which I was a little smaller, but that's all the time. Whether you get out of the patrol car, when I'm getting out of the patrol car, going to get something to eat, or I like to drive kind of nice cars sometime, and knowing that car can bring a little attention to myself, or I will go any place, anytime, and my wife and I will go, and you see heads turn, whatever community we're in. So no, it's something that it's something that's there 24/7. It's nothing that you can just walk away from. If you're African American, Black, it's 24/7.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's never like a day goes by that like you don't think about it, because like it's just a part of your life, and you see how other people react to you for simply existing. It can affect you, but you kind of choose how you like think about it, and how you let it affect you. And you have to kind of rise above a little bit and sort of go like, look, that's on them. I'm still like, I'm still me, like their reactions to how I was born, like those don't affect who I am as a person. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other answers? Well, thank you to everyone who was here joining us today. Thank you for the students, the panelists, everyone. You guys are all amazing. Thank you for our sponsors for letting this happen. Any closing statements?
I just want to say all of you gave like great answers to all the questions and different points of views that we could look upon and get together and form a better place at North Muskegon, but also Muskegon County in general. So thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Oh, thank you. Mm.